Hi,
Hello.
everybody. You're gonna show up in a minute. I just am saying good morning, happy Tuesday, happy 2-2 to everyone out there. And we have an amazing guest today. I mean, just in case you don't know Amy Volas is kind of like, I mean, we were talking right before we went live. Like, I know Amy Volas before I knew Amy Volas because her voice is as clear as a bell on LinkedIn, and her impact is literally like the kind that has an indelible impression. You know when it's an Amy Volas post, and you can remember the insights and advice that she offers. Amy, we're so happy to have you here as somebody who is really skilled at having hard conversations. I invited you on here because you make it look easy, even when it's not. And do us the little favor, or the big favor, of giving us some background as to how it is that you were able to learn about having these hard conversations even at a very early age. What happened and how did that come about?
So I mean, I think I am who I am. And while yes, I am a human and I have those moments of questioning, oh my gosh, am I who I am? I'm pretty resolved in in what that is and who that is. And I was raised with really supportive family members of use your voice and you should. And it's how you use your voice that's really important. And um I grew up around really sophisticated and successful business people, primarily hi, Sonal. Primarily my grandfather, who was this like incredible powerhouse titan of his industry. And I didn't even really realize that I was witnessing tough conversations, business conversations, important conversations, conversations after lots of scotch with my grandparents. And um, I was raised under the impression of, look, children are to be seen and not heard. I went to manners school and it was all about listening. And then when it was time to talk, having something of substance to say. And
Mm.
that, and I learned that I think straight out of the womb and have always been celebrated to do that. And I didn't always get it right. And I think where I learned along the way is sometimes my mouth has gotten me in trouble because I am very passionate about the things that I want to talk about. And sometimes I'm misunderstood of being angry about what I'm saying when actually I care deeply and it comes out because I just want to tell people to get out of their own way. So, I've worked a lot on that in terms of you can have hard conversations without, and this is a quote from my dear friend Christine Rogers, you can have hard conversations without throwing sharp. So there's a difference between
Mm. Oh my God. So this is throwing sharp. So I want to really break this down because we kind of like think, ooh, I don't want to touch that. That's a hard conversation. So I want to understand, what is it that makes a hard conversation categorized as hard, and what are the most common of them? So there's like, okay, what deems them, ooh, I don't want to go there, and then what are the ones that surface the most?
I think the hardest conversations are fear-based. You're
Mm.
afraid of screwing up. You're afraid of consequences if you've screwed up. You're afraid of being judged. These are all different things. So I think the harder ones are the fear-based. I think people are also afraid of being who they are for fear of whatever consequence is going to come through that. And so when I think about that, um, sorry, I'm going to move because my husband's head is in the background. That's awesome. But when I think about that, I think that's really the driver is you're afraid. And so I think what makes them harder, the hardest conversations are if we have screwed up or if somebody
Mm.
has misunderstood us or if something is happening around us that we are involved in that we now have to reconcile or resolve because ultimately it's our responsibility. those things tend to be really hard. Or when you know you have to disappoint someone and you
Mm,
have to tell them no, or this isn't working, or we need to make a change, and they're invested in it and they care, or they care too much, or they're hurt, or whatever those things are. All of the feelings around fear, sadness, anger, disappointment, guilt, those tend to be the hardest discussions, in my opinion.
hmm So I definitely wanted to call that out. Fear-based conversations, fear of judgment, fear of being rejected, fear of losing something. Ooh, I'm going to lose this friendship. Ooh, I'm going to, I could lose a relationship with my boss. I could, I could lose a sale, all of these things. And so, in the opposite of that is called what? When you're stuck in that place where you have to, and then you don't, I often think that, I default into that people pleasing mode, right?
Mm.
It's like, ugh, now I've just kind of placated this so that I don't have to address it. What else kind of like is the consequence of not having that hard conversation?
I find if you're not going to have it, it's going to come back tenfold. These things don't go away. Just because they're hard and you want to put your head in the sand doesn't mean that the situation changes. And in fact, I think that the situation magnifies. And I think that it comes back and it bites us like an icky, icky, icky boomerang, really, really hard. And so I am not a people pleaser at all. And that doesn't mean that I don't care about people. So I think that's the intersection, right? Like that's the thing to really think about. I'm not here to tell you everything that you want to hear. I am here to help. And sometimes helping means that I have to have a conversation that's difficult, and that's okay because I care. So
Mhm.
that's how I think about it, where it's like, no, I'm not. Human interactions were different. I really detest the term agree to disagree. To me, it's like a big, just like shut it down. Like the conversation there, you have nowhere to go. It's kind of like when there's a problem, somebody's like, well, I'm just doing the best that I can do. Like, I have nothing to, what can I do with that? There's nothing. So if it's like, well, agree to disagree, it's like, no, 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 no. I'm really cool with, wait, time out for a second. We're disagreeing, and that's okay. And we can still disagree, and that's okay. I'm not here to shame you, and I'm not here to cancel you. I need to understand why we're disagreeing. And I think you do too. And once we do, we're very clear. And that's actually where progress can be made. Because even if I'm disagreeing with somebody, I'm thinking at the same time. I'm trying to be thoughtful. And every single time. So a person that I disagree with a lot, and not that I disagree with everything that he is about, but on Thursday night sales, Scott, Lisa, and I, we disagree. And I'm really proud of those moments. I don't love them all the time, but I'm proud of those moments because I'm very passionate about showing people through what I do, not just what I say, how to do this. And
Mm.
even though Scott and I might disagree, I'm clear on why we're disagreeing, and he'll get me thinking about something different where there's an opportunity to perhaps change my point of view, think about something different, and consider the other person. And so I think as long as you have that mindset, you can have a hard conversation. You can come out with a hard outcome. And that outcome could be, we're done. No, that didn't work for me. You disappointed me. And that's okay, because in that moment, if that's really the case, it's an opportunity to continue to learn, grow, and thrive. It's what you do with that then that matters.
So awesome. So for anybody that is not aware of this, especially if you're in sales, I literally, it was a mind-blowing experience. Thursday night sales was one of the best, far and away, discussions I've seen with people in sales, learning from masters, asking great questions, and also in real time, troubleshooting the day-to-day in and outs of what is happening in their work life, and how to take those pieces of insights into the real world. So it's a wonderful practice ground. I was there on a night that they were playing some reggae music, which was awesome. So it's pretty unbeatable. It really is. So I love what you were saying. Hi, Paul. Thank you. Agree to disagree. Thanks for that insight. That phrase has never sat well with me, but I could never put my finger on why. Thank you, Amy, for breaking that down. It does feel like a little bit of a F you, like we're just gonna end it right here.
Well,
So
and to that point, and sorry, Lauren, I do want to say this because I think we all need to remember the basic elements of human interaction and what we ultimately feel. We all want to be seen, heard, understood, and most importantly, valued with the people that we do things with. And so shutting down a conversation to say agree to disagree, it's like you just feel like you've been snuffed out. Like, wait, what? And not that you always have to have the last word or carry the conversation on, but I think if you're closing a discussion with the understanding of why, and Paul, I love that you said I could never put my finger on why. Huge Simon Sinek fan over here. It starts with why. And as long as we understand that context, it's okay to have a hard conversation.
yes, it really is. And I did want to call this out. These are universal principles: seen, heard, understood, and validated. So it's validating to understand where the disagreement is. That's really awesome. And it gives a lot of airtime and respect to the people that are clearly as passionate about that point of view as you might be about yours. So what are the biggest mistakes that people make when they are preparing to have that hard conversation? Because most people have it earmarked, right? It's not like it's all of a sudden happening. It usually has some percolation time. So what are some of the mistakes that they make?
The first one is assuming bad intent, not keeping an open mind, not giving somebody the benefit of the doubt to understand their point of view. And so I think people come in with guns hot, right? So like of all of a sudden I'm replaying this, and our natural inclination as humans is to take care of ourselves, right? We go into fight or flight. And then if it feels weird, even if we have culpability, and by the way, there's always three sides to every story, my friends, but I think it's really, we go into that fight or flight mode of this feels wrong. I don't like this. And now I don't really want to assume responsibility. So it's easier for me to build the case. Well, that person didn't do this, and this is what happened, and they are horrible. And I hate that. I'm not a fan of that. It's like, and by the way, I've been that person that's gone straight to judgment. And who made me the judge, jury, and executioner? Nobody. So when I think about really what I've worked on through the years is showing up to listen. And I find that most people listen to respond. They don't listen to understand. And there's a big thing that I talk about in terms of seeking to understand. And when we do that, funny how then we become understood. And remember, it goes back to that whole thing about we ultimately want to be seen, heard, understood. That's a really big backdrop to that. So I think it's okay, well, wait a second. Why is this even happening? I think it's just like to remove some of that emotion and to look at your emotions. So we all have feelings. They're not wrong. They're not right. And in these hard conversations, there's a lot of emotions happening. It's being able to recognize those feelings as a signal, right? Like some of the best work I've done with a coach that I have in my life is my feelings are signals. And it's what I do with those signals. So if all of a sudden you're approaching a red light, you're not going to push the gas and go blazing through it when there's traffic coming out. You would not do that. So why would I push through a conversation and just go pedal to the metal on the floor and just go through it? That doesn't work well. I will get into an accident. I will hurt myself. That is not okay. So thinking
this
through
is powerful. Feelings are signals. Danger, danger. You're getting hot. Right.
Yeah.
You're seeing red. And we all know, when you're escalating that level of anger, usually nothing good comes out of it because you're so clouded in what you described very accurately, which is case building. And I know when I'm case building, when I can hear myself going, and this, and that, and I'm literally like putting these things right on top of each other. And there's no fighting chance that anybody is going to feel heard, seen, understood, or validated. So I can just wipe those right off.
And it's easy to take sound bites out of something and focus on that one thing and assume the most horrible of intent. And I am not here for this shaming cancel culture that we're living in. I am not here for it at all. I think it's horrible. I think it's really not okay, because guess what? All of us will make a mistake. Now, the magnitude of the mistake, that's different, right? But like, if you went to Thursday night sales, for example, and you took just one little baby soundbite and you didn't have any context of what I was saying, you could build a case as to whatever you'd want to say about me. And that's horrible, right? That's so I just think it's like, wait a second, context, giving somebody the benefit of the doubt, even if you disagree, it's okay. Context to give them the benefit of the doubt. When you approach that conversation, you're much more open than coming in. I can tell you, I had a conversation recently. Person didn't come off. So like digital hygiene, person didn't come off of camera, and I felt their disdain through the camera. And I felt like they were almost talking to me like with their arms crossed.
Ooh.
And so
Ooh.
instead of assuming that, I said, well, I'd like to understand why we're all here. Right. And I'd like to understand your point of view. And that's really important for me to get that. And then as they were talking, I made notes. And then through the conversation, as I was responding, I heard what you said.
Right.
That arm started coming down a little bit. And isn't that a lovely thing where you can actually have a conversation? I don't think anybody likes a troll. I don't think anybody likes to be shamed. I don't think anybody likes to be judged. So if nobody likes that, why do we assume that position that we're all knowing? The only way that we can know is to chuck the assumption, to actually show up to have a discussion, to say, help me understand, tell me more. Why? And notice how I'm saying it doesn't make you feel like you're on the chopping block of an accusation. It's like, and it's okay to say, that didn't land for me. This fell short.
Right.
That's not working for me. I'm really frustrated.
I love every single thing, this whole idea of inserting these validating signals, right? We were talking about signals that indicator, I'm listening. Tell me more. Help me unpack this. Explain this to me. Those are all ways of going deeper than just taking the information on the surface. And the next question I have is not an easy one, right? I've been on the other end of these conversations. We all have. When someone is actually coming at you, they either have prepared or are unprepared. They are assuming, and then you're on the receiving end of one of these hard conversations. How do you not only maintain your composure, but prepare thoughtfully without assuming that you're going to eventually respond? Because one of the Amy isms that I wanted to also make sure everyone knows, Amy talks about 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's a reason for that. So I'm going to assume that part of this question is to use both of these in the process.
Yeah, it's to know I'm going into the war room, right? And I'm going to get called on the carpet. And this is really hard to do, especially like if you screwed up. And I've done it lots of times. It's to listen. It's to not just jump in and explain or to defend. The two things that I think people really disconnect from is when you come into a conversation entitled and when you come into a conversation defensive. And that is easily detected through the language you use, through your body language, through the tonality, through all of those things, right? It's the how. So I had to have a tough conversation where I screwed up, right? I did some of the things that we talked about recently. And I was called out for it. The next day, the person had thought about it and they said, can we have a conversation? I said, absolutely. And I kind of knew something fell flat. And they said, this is what happened. This didn't work for me. And I said, you're absolutely right. It didn't work for me either. See, I'm not defending. It didn't work for them and it didn't work for me. And that's where a breakdown happened. So I immediately said, you're right. It didn't work. It didn't work for you and it didn't work for me. I'd love to hear more about what didn't work for you.
Oh my gosh. Total disarmament. And so there's a practice that I just heard you reference with probably without even knowing it. You said, "You're right." You're right. You didn't say, "I'm sorry." You said, "You're right," which implicitly implies that I was wrong. And so
Well,
I
and
it
for
it
the record, not to jump in, I did apologize for my part in it, for the things that I did, for the
right,
way that it came across. And because of that, we had progress and we're better than ever. Now it's, a few weeks later and we're joking about it. Doesn't
right.
have to be doom and gloom. If I would have gone in guns hot being like, no, I didn't mean that. You took me out of context. You screwed up. You didn't do this. A very different outcome, ladies and gentlemen, that are joining us today or listening to us today.
Absolutely. So be aware of coming in defensive. Go in with your ears open, your mouth on delay, right? I think that that is critical because when it's coming at you, I think our natural inclination is really, really to want to, guns a blazing, right? 2 ears, one mouth. And vertically speaking, the brain is above the ears, which
I
are
love
both above the mouth, challenging us to process mentally. Continue to hear and don't speak until you have processed and heard. Thank you, LinkedIn user. Totally agree with that, right? Vertically speaking, I love that. Fantastic. So I want to also talk about some of the top tips to make hard conversations more equitable and effective. So we already know the listening, right? Listening, number one. And then what else is you're talking a little bit about body language, and I'm going to assume that this isn't a great posture that you want to have. So talk to us about where you as the recipient or you as the initiator of these conversations, what kind of body language is not advisable and what works best?
I think the crossing of the arms, I think being supple when you roll your eyes, I think when it's like, ugh, and I've been on calls where I can hear somebody sigh and I'm like, what is that all about? Right. So I think it's those things. I also think it's our tone of voice. And I think that, if you're somebody like me, that your tone of voice is misunderstood a lot of the time as being angry or like, coming in a hard way. I can change some of that, but ultimately I am who I am, and I'm really comfortable with that. And so that's a very fine balance. How I deal with that is it's called self-awareness. So I
Mhm.
will disclaim myself before we get into the discussion to say, you might feel like my tone of voice is X when actually it's Y. And if that happens, I need your help to call me on it because I don't even
Mm.
realize at the time. So I think people really appreciate when you know your stuff, right? Like when about you, about who you are, and being able to be comfortable with that and give permission instead of hoping that they realize I'm just really passionate about this and let's hope that they figure it out, to be able to say, here's my stuff, right? This is who I am and I care deeply about this discussion. A couple of things. So anytime I'm having really important discussions, whether they're hard conversations or not, I have a laundry list of disclaimers.
Mm.
The other thing I think is um, I make notes. I got a remarkable 2 for my birthday. It's an amazing thing because I don't think people like when people are typing all the time because like sometimes you can hear that and it's like, are you on Twitter? Are you like writing a shameful post on LinkedIn about how I'm a jerk? Like what's happening here? Are you doing something? Are you not even paying attention? Because remember, again, people want to be seen, heard, and understood, especially if it's a difficult conversation. So I really like this remarkable 2 thing because I can make notes, I can transfer it to text, and I can automatically put it wherever I want to put it, which is awesome.
Mm.
So I'm still making notes and I disclaim that then. I might not be making eye contact with you. You have my undivided attention. This is a really important conversation to me. Mind if I take notes? Nobody's going to be like, yeah, no, I don't want to be heard. They're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And then, I'm coming back, but then I'm looking at them, right? I'm making eye contact. I'm I'm being intentional about what I'm hearing. So it's that active listening of, I heard what you said. And out of what you said, two of those things make a ton of sense to me. This one thing I'm still murky on. Can we talk about that? I can
Mhm.
solve for these two things, but this third thing, I don't know. And I don't know if I even understand it. So can we talk about that? And then you make the note and to say, okay, so you know what? I heard you. And when you said X, Y, and Z, here's why it won't work for me. And I don't know if we have a solution or not. I'm open to it. Or you see how that goes? It's a very different thing than just being like guns hot.
I hear so much of your, insights as a lot of probing, a lot of inquiry, a lot of help me understand. And you're saying it coming from a place of authenticity. You're not doing it to be snarky or anything like that. You're actually validating as you're inquiring, right? Because every time you're going a level deeper, what you're really saying is, heads up, I'm a little lost here. Set me back on track so that I understand the crux of the issue. Because oftentimes it's very difficult unless you are probing to really understand what the root cause is. And people may just feel hurt, but then we want to know why, and how we can make those course corrections. So
And
this
nine
is
times out of 10,
powerful.
if somebody has tripped a chord with me, where it can happen, right? Where they don't realize that they're disrespecting me. They don't realize that they're talking over me. They don't realize that they're talking at me. They don't even realize that they've screwed up. I will correct that pretty quickly. Like I don't let things fester, which is the other thing, right? Like I try to just nip it as quickly as possible. And that's the hard part too, is we want to go into turtle mode a little bit. No, I will deal with it as quickly as I can. If I know that I'm going to have to correct something, so like one of my pet peeves is when I'm talking to somebody and they say to me, does that make sense? I am one of those that is on the side of, I find it to be very condescending. I find it to be a filler term to just validate what you're doing. And I find it to be insulting to my intelligence because if something doesn't make sense, I will let you know. And so this has happened in different places. And what I've said is, I'm going just to let you know, I'm going to give you some feedback and it's going to be hard to hear. Are you ready for that? And I can tell then, are they ready for that or not? And some people, they don't want feedback. And if they don't want feedback, that's okay. Probably not going to spend a lot of time with you then, right? Like,
Mhm.
because that's just, I need to have relationships where we can be open. 9 times out of 10, people are saying yes. And I will say, so for me, I know you're trying to figure out if what you're saying is landing for me. I get it. I appreciate that. But the way that it comes across is talking at me, not with me. And so if you're
Mm.
trying to figure out if I'm picking up what you're throwing down, please know, step one, I'll let you know if it doesn't make sense. Two, if you want to understand how that particular thing lands with me, just ask me, how would this apply to you? And we are good. Now, see how
Mm.
I live and die by setting expectations early and often. There are plenty of people that could care less about being asked, does that make sense? But for me, that doesn't work. So if it doesn't work, I'm going to call it out.
Oh my goodness. We could all go to the Amy Volas School of Hard Conversations. I'm serious. That would be so awesome. I would have to get a remarkable because I would be like so busy taking notes right here. And this is not going to be in a book. Okay. This is life. This is what happens also when you read Amy Volas's posts and when you engage with her, because this is not Amy Volas in a capsule just here, just now on this live. This is Amy Volas in LinkedIn, on LinkedIn, outside of LinkedIn, in her practice, in her life. And that's one of the things that I love about somebody who is self-aware, who is also demonstrating how this works in real time, in real life, with her clients, with her colleagues, with people like me that like are like, Amy, you're amazing. I mean, I was a gushing fan. I still am. But the point is that I really wanted to learn from Amy and hear what she had to say long before I started really engaging with her as a colleague. And I'm honored. I'm so honored. I know you have a hard stop. thank you for all of the insights and the advice and the nuggets. What you put down, I'm picking up. And I know everyone else here is too. Amy Volas, a legend, a wonderful, trusted salesperson, Avenue A Partners, and the brainchild behind this is Amy Volas, LinkedIn Top Voice, and so many other recognitions for her fine work, and a dear role model for me. Thank you.
Lauren, thank you. First of all, fun fact about me, I do not take compliments very well. So I don't even know what to say to that. I want to do like a snarky, like self-deprecating thing, but I'm working on that. So I will just say thank you. And I appreciate that.
Bravo, bravo. Because that would be very unvalidating if you didn't.
But I appreciate you. You've shown up in my life in such beautiful ways, in front of and behind the scenes. And thank you. And for anybody that joined us, I really hope that this was helpful. There were some really cool insights coming out of the chat too, which is great. So thank you. And I hope to see all of you for more conversation online. So
there you
thank
go. You. Great day, everybody. Thank you for coming to this lesson half. Go get it, Amy. Bye.
Bye.